Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about something today that I know is a big question for pretty much all of you. How does all this business math we learn in the classroom actually connect to the real world? Today, we're going to build that bridge. We're going to move way beyond just the formulas and really connect the dots between the numbers on a page and the massive, impactful decisions you are all going to be making in your careers. Okay, let's just dive right in and address the elephant in the room. This question, the one I hear every single semester, without fail. When am I actually going to use this stuff? And you know what? It's a totally fair question. It deserves a real, comprehensive answer, not just me saying, oh, trust me, you'll use it everywhere. So today, we're going to demonstrate precisely how and why this becomes one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, tool in your entire professional arsenal. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to completely reframe how we even think about business math. Then we're going to take a deep dive into its application in 3 huge career paths: finance, consulting, and management. My goal is that by the end of our time together, you'll see that these skills aren't just about passing a final exam, they're about building the absolute bedrock for a successful and seriously impactful career. All right, first things first, we need to start with a pretty crucial mindset shift. If you're coming into this class thinking it's just a long list of formulas to memorize for a test, you are missing the entire point. You're missing the big picture. Business math isn't just about calculation. It is about learning an entirely new way of thinking. So when you see a formal definition like this, don't just let your eyes glaze over. I want you to think of business mathematics as the universal language of commerce. It's not about memorizing syntax. It's about learning how to use numbers to tell a compelling story. Take a simple profit and loss statement. To the untrained eye, it's just a bunch of numbers. But once you know how to read it, it tells you the entire story of a company, its successes, its struggles, its hidden potential. It takes all that ambiguity and guesswork and transforms it into a clear, quantifiable, objective picture. I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. This isn't just some nice-sounding, catchy phrase. It is the fundamental principle that separates successful strategy from just hopeful guesswork. When you can back up your ideas with solid numbers, you're no longer just sharing an opinion. You are presenting a logical, defensible case. And that distinction, my friends, is what will define your entire career. Okay, so now that we've set that stage, let's see this language in action. And what better place to start than the fast-paced, high-stakes world of finance? In this arena, your mathematical skills are not just some helpful tool, they are literally your armor and your sword. So these right here, these are the core tools of the trade in finance. Let's take asset valuation. What does that even mean? Well, in simple terms, it's about figuring out what something, a company, a project, a stock, is actually worth today based on all the cash it's expected to generate in the future. The workhorse for this is a tool called the discounted cash flow, or DCF model. And it's all built on the single most important concept in finance, the time value of money, the idea that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. DCF is the engine that lets us take all those future potential earnings and translate them into one single concrete value today. Then you've got risk analysis. That's where we use statistics, like standard deviation, to measure volatility and quantify uncertainty. It's like a sophisticated weather forecast for your investments, helping you see the potential storms on the horizon. And this brings us to a huge common mistake, the trap of the hot tip. A compelling story is incredibly powerful, but a truly smart investor always does the math. Just think back to the dot-com bubble. You had companies with amazing stories, revolutionary ideas, but zero profits, sometimes zero revenue, and they were valued in the billions. When the market finally sobered up and looked at the actual numbers, or the lack thereof, it all came crashing down. Your valuation model is your objective investigation. It is your way of stress testing that compelling story. And remember, even the best model is only as good as the assumptions you feed into it. That's why we're not just learning formulas, we're learning to think critically about the numbers themselves. So here's the crucial point. The stock market can feel like a totally chaotic sea of information, right? It's overwhelming. But when you have the right mathematical tools, you can navigate it. Understanding a concept like the time value of money is like having a compass in that sea. It's the fundamental principle that guides nearly every single financial decision, from a huge corporation deciding whether to build a new factory all the way down to you figuring out how to save for retirement. It helps you see the value others miss and avoid the risks others stumble into. All right, let's switch gears. Next up, consulting. I want you to imagine you're a kind of business detective. You get called in to solve a company's biggest, most complex mysteries. You walk into a messy, ambiguous situation, and your job is to create a crystal clear roadmap to success. And what's your secret weapon? You guessed it, it's a logical framework built with numbers. Here's a peek inside a consultant's brain. A client asks a huge, vague question. How can we be more profitable? A novice might just say, sell more stuff? But a consultant, no way. They immediately start building what's called a profitability tree. It starts with the most basic formula. Profit equals revenue minus costs. Simple, right? But then they break it down. Revenue is a function of price per unit times the volume of units sold. Costs are broken into fixed costs and variable costs. By quantitatively analyzing every single branch of this tree, they can pinpoint the exact source of the problem and deliver a highly targeted, evidence-based solution. And this all follows a very structured playbook. Think of it like the scientific method for business. First, they deconstruct the problem, just like we did with the profitability tree. Second, they formulate a hypothesis, an educated guess, like, I believe the issue is our rising variable costs. But, and this is the absolute key, they don't stop there. They move to step 3. They gather and rigorously analyze the data to prove or disprove that hypothesis. This is where the numbers are everything. The data is the evidence that elevates a simple opinion into a rock-solid, defensible recommendation. This is where you really earn your stripes as a consultant. Picture it. You are in the boardroom pitching a multi-million-dollar strategic shift to a skeptical CEO. You can't just walk in and say, I have a really good feeling that this will work. You have to walk in and say, our analysis shows that by implementing this change, we can reduce variable costs by 12%, which will result in a projected ROI of 22% over the next 3 years. Here is the data. That is the language of confidence. That's the language of credibility that gets you a seat at the table. Okay, now let's bring it all down to the operational core of any organization, management. This is truly where the rubber meets the road. As a manager, you are the one making the hundreds of decisions every single day that keep the business running. And believe me, MAP is going to be your absolute best friend in that role. Being a manager means you are constantly making judgment calls. How much should we allocate to the marketing budget this quarter? How much inventory should we keep in the warehouse? These are not gut feel decisions. There's a real science to it. By using mathematical models, things like calculating customer lifetime value to inform your advertising spend, or using an economic order quantity formula to optimize your inventory, you can make smarter, more efficient, and ultimately more profitable decisions that keep the entire business humming along. Let's just paint a quick picture here. Look at the chart. Manager A, on the left, goes with their gut. You know, sales felt pretty good last month. Let's order a ton more. Now, as that first bar shows, they are drowning in carrying costs. Their cash is tied up in unsold products sitting on a shelf. But Manager B? Manager B is a data wizard. They use a simple forecasting model based on historical sales data. Their orders, as you can see in that much smaller second bar, are optimized. They have just enough, they've saved the company money, freed up cash, and avoided a massive operational headache. And look, this isn't just about saving a few dollars. It is about building a fundamentally smarter, more proactive, more resilient business. When your team isn't constantly putting out fires caused by poor planning and guesswork, you have the time and the resources to focus on what actually matters: innovation, strategy, and long-term growth. That is how you build a company that lasts. And that's the kind of company everyone wants to work for. So after seeing all of this, what's the big takeaway for you right now as you're navigating this course? It's really this. Every single problem you solve, every formula you learn, is one more step towards becoming a more effective, more decisive, and more impactful leader. You're not just learning math, you're learning how to make a real difference. This slide really lays out a fundamental choice you have to make. On the left, you have the intuition-based leader. And it's tempting, right? It feels decisive to say, I just have a feeling. But it's a very risky path. It's incredibly vulnerable to all sorts of cognitive biases, and it's almost impossible to defend when things go wrong. But on the right side, you have the data-driven leader. This is the path of a strategic, thoughtful, and ultimately far more successful professional. It's not based on what I feel, but what the data shows. And that's exactly why we're here. I want you to think of this course as your gym. Every problem you solve is a rep. Every concept you master is you building your analytical muscles. You are not just preparing for an exam. You are actively training to become the kind of leader in that right-hand column, a leader who can see things others can't, make smart decisions under pressure, and inspire real confidence in their team. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final thought. The skills you are building in this course are not just for the classroom. They are the keys that will unlock a future of immense opportunity and impact for you. So the real question isn't if you'll use this, it's a given that you will. The real question is, what problems are you going to choose to solve with it? What value will you create? The world has a lot of problems waiting for smart, quantitative thinkers like you. Now go out there and do the math.